Akash Inti, the real reflection of you. It's funny because when I was in high school, it was actually the day of prom. I remember that I was seeing a girl at the time, and I was also working on a political campaign at the time. It was a big congressional race between two congressmen who were running up against each other, and they were in the same party, and it was huge. It was like, it was a huge race. So much money was put into it and whatnot. And I spent quite a bit of time working in the field at one of the big cities at the time, and was really working for one of the congressmen who my grandmother had done quite a bit of campaign work for in the past. As a result of this whole thing of the big race and everything like that, there was obviously big, what are these called, like surrogates or people who come to the support of the congressman, like big name politicians. And the one was a former president, so he came to the area and he was speaking on behalf of the congressman that I was working for. As an intern / someone working on the campaign at the time, it was almost like a privilege and an honor to be able to meet a former president and get his autograph and whatnot. Anyways, the event ended up going really long, and as I mentioned, it was the day of my prom. And so, or it was the day after my prom, so the prom was on a Thursday. Usually Friday was when the day we took off. And so Friday was the day of the event where the former president was coming through. And the event went really long, and there came to be a point where I was like, I just want to go down the shore, because usually that's what happens. All of the seniors in high school would go down the shore and just hang out, just get a hotel for the weekend and hang out and cause trouble, cause ruckus. I wanted to go down the shore and hang out with my girlfriend. And there came a time where I was arguing with my mom about wanting to go down the shore. I'm like, Mom, I just want to go down the shore and do that. And the way the events ended up going was that it took really long time to break down, set up, and that was kind of all of my responsibility, or to help out with it. Anyways, there came to be a point, it was 10 o'clock at night. There was a crazy storm that night. Hurricane, gale force winds, literally, I think 60, 70 mile an hour winds. Absolutely torrential rain, thunderstorm like no other. And like I mentioned, most of the seniors in the high school were already down the shore. I was up in another part of Jersey, and I was making my way back home before I went over to ideally to go down the shore, but just the weather was so bad. My parents were like, it's really not a good idea. Why don't you just wait to go in the morning? And I fucking lost it. The angriest, if I've ever experienced rage in my life, that was the experience of it. I remember taking my phone. I had an NV2 at the time, one of the ones that you can open it up, and I just chucked it at the wall. I walked out the door, I slammed it, and I'm like, I fucking hate you guys. I can't believe that I had to stay for this fucking thing. I was talking to my parents, my mom mostly. I can't believe I had to stay for this fucking event, and blah, blah, blah. I ended up walking to the local park right around me. And as I mentioned, it was absolutely torrential rain, thunderstorms, and truly gale force winds, absolutely something else. And it's pouring torrential rain, and I walked over and I ran away. I quote unquote ran away from home, if you will. My parents were just petrified. My mom was didn't know what to do. My dad didn't know what to do, but they kind of knew to leave me be on my own. Anyways, I ended up walking over towards the local park where you could typically get a pretty good view of New York City and quite a bit of down South Jersey. or Central Jersey, and I just had these moments where, like I mentioned, lightning was striking all over. It felt like lightning was striking just trees all around. And it was one of those days where, or one of those nights where, I was just hoping that someone would save me, that someone would come up and pick me up and be like, hey, are you okay? Like, what's going on? Like a stranger. There was like 10 or 12 cars that drove past me while I was walking in the pouring rain, head down, just so angry because I just wanted to be with my girlfriend at the time. And hanging out with my acquaintances and friends, or what I thought to be friends. And I had a moment at the park where it felt like I was being protected, and I didn't know by who. But I felt like, with all of this chaos going on around me, the lightning striking all around, the gale force winds, the torrential rain, that I could have easily been killed that night by just a strike of lightning, being hit by a car because visibility was so poor. But I ended up making it back home. I walked back home after about an hour. And at that time, my parents were like, okay, we'll drive you down. And so I ended up making it down. But I experienced rage and anger, that uncontrollable feeling of anger, of just wanting to do one thing, but being told that I couldn't do it. And that enraged me because I felt like I didn't have control over my own life. And it's funny because I've actually never revisited this memory up until this moment, at least speaking it verbally out loud. But one of the things that's been going on with me today is I've been angrier than I've ever been in a while. And it might not seem like it on the outside from anyone who'd been around me, but there's been so much shouting, there'd been so much poor communication ongoing today that it really ticked me off. It really pissed me off. And what I did was I sat with it. I had a lecture going on in one ear. There was a movie going on in the background. I think one of my brothers and my parents were fighting about something, obviously a small little quarrel, nothing like huge. And I was just like, and then I was also working on something at the same time, and I was just like, oh, like I just want to like scream and shout at the top of my lungs because I felt like I couldn't handle it at the time. But all I did was breathe. And I felt that inside myself. I felt that feeling of anger. So, I don't know, what am I trying to say? I don't really know. Simply expressing myself, expressing my experience. Life is tough sometimes. Life is really tough sometimes. But it's why I found sitting with whatever life gives you and just being with it, feeling it, choosing how to express yourself is huge. Just because you have an internal storm that may be like gale force winds, lightning striking trees within, doesn't mean you aren't protected. So this message is relax. Find the stillness inside when all of that chaos arises within. And decide how you want to express yourself, because it leaves a mark on others. Keep up, thrive, stay sexy.